如果你是女生，你一定要把这一集看完 because today I'm going to show you all the evil and devious ways that men try to control women. You hear all this talk about the patriarchy? Well, I'm about to show you what the patriarchy really looks like. And for those of you who have daughters, if your daughter was treated like this, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't want to settle. When it comes to Diddy, you'd be out for blood. So today, we're going to take a very close look at the lawsuit between R&B singer Cassie and Sean P. Diddy Combs. According to legal experts, this was one of the fastest settled cases in history. Filed on a Thursday, settled on a Friday. And I guarantee after watching this, you will be pissed. All the evil details of this lawsuit is like it's pulled straight out of a psychological thriller, or even worse, a torture-style SOD film. And after I reveal all the details of this case, you will slowly realize that when it comes to Cassie and Diddy, they did not have a romantic relationship, yo. They had a relationship that was more like master to slave. So this suit is 35 pages long, and it goes into very excruciating detail. Now, 因为我不要被黄标, I need to be very careful how I describe things, especially the violent parts. So for you guys, you're gonna have to use your imagination. Now, at the beginning of this suit, it outlines how Diddy first met Cassie. It all started when Cassie, at 19 years old, had her debut song playing at a nightclub. And Diddy, at 37 years old, just happened to be there and hear this song. And he thought it was one of the greatest things he ever heard. So he immediately got in contact with Cassie. By 2006, this girl who had barely graduated high school and had one song to her name was now about to sign a deal for 10 albums to Puff Daddy's Bad Boy Records label. Could you imagine? 你高中刚好毕业，你在街上上传一首歌 and 踢到奖 or 周杰伦 or Starton, they say, hey, 我要跟你签约 10 albums, yo. That would be a dream come true. But the story I'm about to tell you is a woman's worst nightmare come to life. So further down this lawsuit, Diddy starts to produce Cassie's self-titled album. And by August of 2006, it was already hitting number 4 on the charts. So Diddy arranges for Cassie to perform at TRL, which is Total Request Live on MTV, and BET's 106 in Park television program. And because this is her first time performing on such a big show and the pressure was mounting, she suffered from severe performance anxiety and she completely bombed.
I know that I shouldn't have had you waiting at all.
And as a result, the critics destroyed this girl. Now this is where Diddy takes the opportunity to play the father figure, and he defends her and says, hey, she's new, we're gonna repackage her, we're gonna build her up a little bit better. But I have a question. If someone like Diddy, who's a very seasoned professional and knows how to build artists, this is the guy that brought us Faith Evans and the notorious B.I.G. Wouldn't you think that someone like this would know how to properly prepare the artist before thrusting them into the spotlight like this? So what I see are the very early remnants of PUA. Make your target feel guilty for not doing a good enough job, and then console them and make them feel like you're the only one that can make them whole.
妹妹，我跟你讲吼，因为你台上的表现不太好吼，你第一个转几的完全被戳散哦，大家都在批评你耶，你真的失败哦吼。但是呢，你听我吼，你听我的话，你一定会成功，只有我可以帮助你哦。
Ladies, no matter what industry you're in, you need to be careful, yo. Stay woke in the real sense, because if you're not, someone will completely come in and mess you up bad. And when it comes to Cassie, at one of her most vulnerable moments, this is where Diddy comes in and does some very bad things. So by November of 2006, Diddy decided to give Cassie another chance. And he invited her to come perform at the MTV Music Awards in Europe alongside him. And of course, she was super excited. She would now get a chance to redeem herself not only in the public eye, but in Diddy's eyes as well. While she's sitting in that makeup chair, Diddy's hairstylist and his makeup artist, which he provided for Cassie, whispers in her ear, hey, Diddy has a thing for you. Now Cassie pretended not to hear anything. Here's her first reaction, she's like, 很恶心啊，他38岁，我20岁耶，而且他是我们公司的老大耶，很奇怪耶。And some of you might be wondering, why in the world would 2 staffers, 2 women, tell this girl that their boss had a thing for her? That would be the first red flag. But it's about to get even worse from here. Because according to the lawsuit, Diddy invited Cassie to his hotel room, where he's wandering around in nothing but a bathrobe, drinking alcohol, and he seems a little bit drunk. And you have to wonder, why in the hell would the president of a record label invite his newly signed artist to his hotel room and wearing nothing but a bathrobe? Now, this whole thing reeks PUA innuendo, yo. First, you tell your newly signed artist they messed up bad, that only you can fix them, so they have to listen to every word you say. Then, you give them a seemingly second chance, upon which two of your own staffers tell her that you have a thing for her. Then, after the performance, you invite her up to your hotel room to celebrate where you're wearing nothing but a bathrobe. This is sexual harassment in the workplace 101. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, why wouldn't she just quit? But you have to remember, Cassie, a teenager, barely out of high school, had just signed a contract for 10 albums. Her future was set in stone. Not only that, she also had the mounting pressure of the public to prove herself that she was not whack after her previous performance, which didn't go too well. And back to the contract, if you don't know how a record label works, when you sign that contract, the record label usually foots the bill for all your fees, your recording fees, music video fees. So off rip, you owe them money. And then you're gonna try and cancel the contract?
You better be careful.
That's a straight up recipe for bankruptcy, yo. So Cassie was out of options and had nowhere to go. And take it from me, I've been in this industry for nearly 20 years. Be very careful when signing long-term deals. Make sure you read every line of that contract, yo. Otherwise, that could be a recipe for disaster. So upon seeing Diddy half drunk and dancing around in his robe, Cassie immediately left that place. And it's important to note that at that time, Cassie had a boyfriend. But this would not stop Diddy, as he was willing to resort to some of the most dirty tricks to get what he wanted. Now, Diddy went to great lengths to ensure that his personal and social life were very closely intertwined with Cassie's. Check it. According to this lawsuit, on Cassie's 21st birthday in Vegas, Diddy showed up with his entire entourage. We're talking famous models, famous musicians, famous producers. Diddy was very clearly flaunting his influence in front of this young, impressionable girl, showing her that not only did he have influence, but he had power. And you need to remember, Cassie already has a boyfriend. Not only that, but Diddy is in a very public romantic relationship with the future mother of his children and supermodel Kim Porter. But this didn't stop him at all. Once he saw his opportunity at that party, he dragged Cassie into the bathroom and kissed her without her consent. And this made Cassie upset. She immediately ran out of the bathroom crying. Now, although she did tell one friend, she was terrified to tell anyone else. And then the next day, Cassie showed up to an award ceremony alongside her boyfriend. And when Diddy saw this, he was livid. He said the invitation only extended to Cassie and that she was not allowed to bring her boyfriend. Could you imagine this? Your boss is interested in you, and no matter how many times you reject him, and no matter how many times you tell him you have a boyfriend, he still pursues you, but you can't quit because this guy practically owns you. After all, you did sign the contract, and if you breach it, he can break you.
Piece of shit.
So at this period in time, Cassie's situation was really terrible. 她真的很可怜. And I know some of our female viewers watching right now have probably witnessed something like this, or maybe even been through something like this. So if you have a story, let us know in the comments down below, and also share with us how you would deal with this situation if it were you. But everything that happened up until this point was just leading to something worse, because now Diddy was about to resort to something even more drastic to control Cassie. He was about to use drugs. So in early 2007, Puffy would flaunt his power and influence and ultimately his control over Cassie. Check this. This guy paid an events team to create an entirely fake flyer with Cassie's name on it, claiming that she was gonna have to host an event down in Miami. And this was all to get her to come down and join him. For what reason? To get her away from her boyfriend.
What your man got to do with me?
I got a man.
I'm not trying to hear that.
Now, when Cassie found out about this, she was completely taken aback. This guy had recruited several people to lie on his behalf, to literally distort reality, all just so that he could have his way with her? But what was she to do? He was her boss, and if she refused, it could completely jeopardize her career, not to mention her bank account. So even though she knew it was all a ruse, she accepted and she got on the flight and went to Miami, in which things took an even darker turn. Diddy got her incredibly drunk, drunker than she had ever been before. And then he would force her to take illegal substances, some of which she had never even done before. And the result? She was high for an entire weekend. In fact, she couldn't even remember what day it was by the time it was over. And of course, in the end, Diddy had his way with her. This guy went from distorting reality, creating a fake party, all to get her away from her boyfriend, to come down to Miami and party with him. And then he took advantage of this girl. Now, I know some of you are watching thinking, how could this girl be so dumb? Did she not know what was going on or what was about to happen? But try to put yourself in her shoes. Imagine being young and your old Xiang, someone who has power, money, and influence, is telling you that he can make you a star. He's providing you with all this opportunity, giving you guidance, making you feel safe, and then he flips that shit on you. And by that time, it's too late. You can't refuse. Otherwise, you go broke. Not only that, but you risk ruining your entire reputation. So needless to say, this was just the beginning, because Cassie was about to be completely devoured by Diddy. Not only did he use money to control her, but he was now using illegal drugs. And he would do this constantly. He even bought her an apartment 5 minutes walk from his. And every time he saw her, he would force her to take illegal drugs, continuing and further deepening his control over her. Now, I'm a lot older now, but I don't really know if I were in that position, a lot younger, looking for some opportunity, if I would be able to resist that sort of temptation, yo. Would you?
No.
So we've gotten through phase 1, which is planting the seed, showing off the power and the influence. And we passed phase 2, which is using the drugs and the debt trap. And now we're about to get to phase 3, where Diddy is about to use this young girl to fulfill all of his dark and twisted fantasies. Okay, so for this part, I have to use code names and aliases, because in this lawsuit, the details are too descriptive, and we will definitely get flagged by YouTube. So like I said before, use your imagination. All right, you've been warned. Let's go. So, within a few months of them officially entering into a romantic relationship, Puffy is now 40 years old, and Cassie, at 22 years old, feels completely beholden to whatever Puffy wants to do. And while in New York City, Puffy has a confession to make. He tells Cassie that he would love it if she would participate with him in what he calls voyeurism. And he also says this, that he would love nothing more, that nothing would turn him on more than anything else than to see Cassie on someone else's drumstick.
What?
So the first time this happened, while in Los Angeles, Diddy hired a man to come to their home, and all three of them put on masquerade masks like an Eyes Wide Shut, and they ingested substances. Then Diddy instructed the man and Cassie to engage in a workout routine. He told them exactly what to say to each other and what workout moves to do. And he did all this while sitting in the corner battering his drumstick.
I'm out, man. That nigga's tripping.
And this entire encounter lasted not hours, but days. And this will be the beginning of what Puffy would call freak-offs, aka FOs. And these FOs would happen at any given time. Puffy would call up Cassie and be like, hey, it's time for an FO. And Cassie, no matter what she was doing, would have to completely drop it. She would have to go find a location, then she'd have to find and hire her own training partner until Puffy were to meet them. It became so frequent to where it was happening every single week. And do you know how Diddy would justify this? He would tell Cassie, no, it's our thing, it's our secret. Now, for those of you who have any doubt, I'm actually pretty convinced this actually happened. Because remember in our last episode, we talked about that guy who back in 2018, he said this?
I had sex with Cassie and Sean. Basically, he would masturbate and tell me what to do with Cassie. I was like a slave, okay? I caught herpes, and I came back and I sued him for herpes and won. They asked me to turn in that, which was the video recording, and I did so.
What he described matches what Cassie describes in the lawsuit word for word. Now you might think, okay, it's their thing, that's all, right? But what you're about to find out is that Puffy watches too much SOD, yo. And it only escalated from here. At some point, Puffy would instruct Cassie to find HMB for some fun. And she would have to go on websites and find these people, and once she did, Puffy, on a lot of occasions, would fly these special athletes to his location so they can engage in FOs. And this happened across multiple cities all across the entire United States. And it became so frequent and oftentimes so complicated that Puffy instructed Cassie to work with his staff to organize these FO parties. And this will become the grounds for the base of this lawsuit, accusing Puffy of trafficking. Because in the United States, by definition, it is when you place someone on a plane to go to a different destination for the sole purpose of engaging in physical activity for monetary gain. Now, for these FOs, Diddy's assistants and staff members would set up everything from candles in the hotel room, to lighting, to baby oil, to astro glide. When Diddy arrived, he would supply Cassie and that night's athlete with all the substances they need so that Cassie could completely dissociate herself from the situation, which means he knew that she did not want to participate in this. And these FOs became so frequent and the substance abuse became so severe that it became part of the SOP for Puffy to supply IV drips to Cassie the following day to help her recover. He was literally drugging her to make her forget about what she did the night before. And no matter how many times Diddy told this girl that he loved her, you and I both know this was not love. He was putting this girl's life and well-being at risk, all so that he could make some crazy videotapes for him to watch later on. And according to this lawsuit, Puffy eventually saw himself as a voyeuristic, dirty director. Not only did he control the lighting of where they were, but he would control the entire design. He would tell Cassie exactly what lingerie to wear. He would instruct her to paint her fingernails white so it would have direct contrast with the Hei Qianbi of the 运动员 that she would be performing with that night. He would tell them exactly what to say to each other, exactly where to put their hands, and he would ask them to tell them how it feels. This guy was straight up sick, dude. He would do all this, his right hand on his chimpi, and his other hand, he's got his phone. He's conducting business, he's dealing with his laptop, and sometimes he'll even go and he'll adjust the frame of the camera and adjust the lighting just so he can get the perfect shot for his perfect home video. And sometimes he would film all this on Cassie's phone. And later, when she tried to delete it because she didn't want any evidence of the horrible things she had participated in, he would go into her phone and find a way to undelete the footage. And on multiple occasions, he would force her to watch the playback while on the airplane back to New York City, all to show how much power he had over this girl. And on the several occasions where Cassie tried to refuse the FOs, Puffy would threaten her. He would say that he had multiple videos of her and that he had her under his thumb, and that for her to refuse him would result in her complete destruction. And I quote, "She had a lot to lose." And back in 2015, on Cassie's 29th birthday, while she's out celebrating with her friends, Puffy calls her up and is like, "Hey, leave your birthday party and come to the FO right now." And when she refused, Puffy called the head of his security team to show up and force her to be there. These FOs were now becoming like a second job for Cassie, a job that she had no interest in doing. So by this point, I think we can agree that that 10-album record deal, that contract was a slave contract.
You're goddamn right.
In this lawsuit, it details how Puffy invaded every aspect of Cassie's life, to the point where whenever she was injured as a result of his outrage, when she went to the hospital, he instructed her medical records to be sent directly to him. And for every trip she made to the hospital, Puffy's staff would escort her back home, making sure that she stayed there until she fully recovered. And at one point, Cassie, who Jaime might decided to sway, was already starting to display symptoms of severe memory loss, most likely as a result of all the substance abuse. When she went to the doctor and got an MRI, Puffy instructed that all the results be sent directly to him and no one else. And how did he do this? Because all the doctors that Cassie went to see were on Puffy's payroll. Now, in addition to the FOs, I briefly mentioned that Puffy would have fits of rage, which would result in Cassie getting injured. What you're about to see next is just exactly how violent and dangerous Puff Daddy can really be. There was one instance where Cassie and Diddy were at his house in LA doing some substances together, and then at one point, Diddy's staff member came in and said, "Hey, your arch nemesis, Suge Knight, I saw him at the drive-in down the street." So Diddy, completely out of his mind, went to the armory, pulled out several guns, and headed out the door. He was looking to take Suge Knight out, and this completely freaked Cassie out. And then there was another instance where Diddy forced Cassie to carry his guns in her purse. She had never seen a gun in her life, and now she was being asked to put it in her purse. What if it went off? She was completely terrified. What was the point of this? Diddy wanted to deliver a message to Cassie. Do not fuck with me. I could get you at any point, at any time. I am a dangerous nigga. For those of you who don't know, Suge Knight is legendary in West Coast hip hop, dude. He is a legit Bloods gang member. This guy is serving prison for running a dude over who tried to shoot at him. And for Puffy to be willing to run out in the dead of night and go chase after this guy to try and take him out lets you know that Puffy is equally as dangerous. Not only that, but being around this fool was dangerous as well. And for him to ask his girlfriend to hide guns for him, clearly he'd done it before. In fact, that reminds me of one other case, back when he was dating someone by the name of J-Lo. But don't worry, we'll get to that in the next episode. What I'm about to tell you next, you need to mentally prepare yourself because this shit's heavy. So in January 2009, Diddy and Cassie attended what's known as an industry party. And these parties are very important This is where you go to connect with other people in the industry who might be able to take your career to the next level. And this is exactly what happened. Cassie struck up a conversation with a music manager who agreed to take on a case for her. Now, Cassie thought that she would share the news with Diddy and he would be excited that she was taking the initiative to move her career to the next level. Nah, brah, he was pissed. He immediately drug her out of that party, threw her into the car, and proceeded to repeatedly show her exactly what size shoe he wore. It became so brutal and so bad that even Diddy's head of security tried to intervene, but it was no use. Diddy was out of control. And after committing this horrible act, when they got back to Diddy's house, Cassie immediately tried to escape. Diddy chased after her. He showed her his size 10 shoes again, and he dragged her back into the house and continued to do this over and over again until she eventually threw up. Now, Diddy, after coming out of his fit of rage, eventually realized just what he had done. He had completely brutalized this girl. So he panicked. He instructed his staff members to take Cassie to the London hotel in LA and make her stay there for an entire week while she recovered from her injuries. This is where you start to realize that Diddy had an entire network. There were witnesses to everything that happened, but none of them was willing to speak up. Cassie was not safe anywhere. She was helpless, and reporting this to the police wouldn't do any good because Diddy's influence and control was too powerful. Not only that, but it would just give him another excuse to harm her even worse. So during her stay at the London hotel, some whispers started to leak out. And eventually, a small gossip column magazine wrote about an alleged event between Diddy and Cassie. And these whispers eventually got back to Cassie's parents. So they called Cassie, asking her what's going on, and they demanded that they see her right away. Now, of course, Cassie wanted to go and see her parents, and when she told Diddy, Diddy refused. Diddy was not going to let her leave, and as a result, Cassie had to lie to her parents about what happened. And then, Diddy instructed several members of his staff to go and purchase large numbers of gifts and fill her room as a big apology to make her feel better. And now Cassie, in that hotel room, she was isolated, fearful, and hopeless. There was nowhere she could run to escape Diddy's abusive control. Now, it's important to note that this is January 2009, just 3 years after she signed that record deal with Diddy. In this short amount of time, he completely owned this girl. By this time, and according to the lawsuit, Cassie completely checked out. She became completely numb to all the abuses and the beatings and the forced FOs, and eventually she just went along with everything without even so much as raising any objections. She was trapped. And according to Diddy's own words, these two were like Bobby and Whitney. That's Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston, which is a very famous display of an abusive power dynamic between two famous people. And from people on the outside looking at Diddy and Cassie's relationship, it was more like Ike and Tina. This power-hungry, controlling, abusive monster not only had eyes everywhere, but he was in complete control of Cassie's career and ultimately her life. And these horrible events continued to happen. Back in 2016, at the Intercontinental Hotel, during the middle of an FO, Cassie completely freaked out and she bounced, as Puffy was in another drunken rage, and he decided to take his anger out on both of her eyes. And she waited until she thought Puffy was asleep, and she snuck out the hotel door. And when that door clicked, he woke up, and he started yelling and chasing her down the hall, throwing wine glasses at her in the process. And when he ran out of wine glasses, he threw an entire vase at this girl. But eventually, she was able to duck into the elevator and make her escape. When she got downstairs, she immediately hopped into a taxi and went back to her apartment. And about halfway, she realized Puffy knows about her escape, and this would only make him even more angry. Who knows what he would do next? So, in an attempt to appease him and maybe calm things down, she turned the taxi around and went back to the hotel. When she got there, she was greeted by the hotel security staff who said, "No, leave now. We have footage of everything that happened in that hotel hallway. We saw everything that went down." But here's the thing. According to a very credible source, Puffy paid $50,000 to get the footage erased, also to put money in the pockets of all the hotel staff who saw that footage. There was no evidence that any of this ever happened. And after this, Cassie went into hiding. She went all the way down to Florida and stayed at a friend's house. And Puffy was furious. He was calling her nonstop, leaving her threatening voice messages. She refused to pick up the phone. Any text message he sent, she left him on red. Till she got another phone call from someone else. James Cruz, the president of Bad Boy Entertainment Management Company. This time, she picked up the phone. James told that girl, "If you don't answer Diddy's calls, we're not releasing any of your singles. You're done." Then after that phone call, a few moments later, the head of Sony Music called Cassie and said the exact same thing. Then after that phone call, Puffy got his lawyers to call her and threaten her. Puffy says that responding to his phone calls is in your best interest, quote unquote. Every time this woman tried to escape, no matter where she went, Puffy's vast and controlling network would bring her back in. There was no way out. She was truly a prisoner of this man. So from his security team, to his staff members, to hotel staff members, to lawyers, to the head of music corporations, this guy had everyone at his disposal to get this girl to come back into his dark circle. And you might be wondering, why didn't anyone speak out? And there was even one incident where Puffy's rage was so brutal, you couldn't even recognize Cassie's face. And the assistant and the head of Puffy's security team who found her, they broke into tears. We're talking about two grown-ass men broke into tears at the sight of what he did to this young girl. And Puffy, to cover his tracks, he sent this girl to stay with his son at his house and recover. And every couple of days, Puffy would FaceTime her and tell her, you need to put on more makeup. My son can't see you like this. You need to fix your face. You need to get it all right. And this girl had no choice. Regardless of the fact that many of the staff had seen what happened, no one was willing to speak out. No one was willing to help her. She had to submit. And you need to understand something. Someone as powerful as Diddy, he uses the power of the law through NDAs to make sure that no one can speak out against him. And in this next episode, you're gonna understand not only how powerful Puff Daddy is, but how exactly he controls people and uses everything at his disposal to make sure that you do exactly what he says. Oh boy. 下一集, you're gonna see exactly how this man controls the entire music industry. We're talking about murders, blackmail, bribery, drugs, and even police corruption. And you're also gonna see how he has some very powerful celebrities at his fingertips like puppets. We're talking Jay-Z, Meek Mill, J-Lo, Cuba Gooding Jr. All of these people must bow and bend the knee. Then you will fully understand how Puff Daddy became the mob boss of the entire East Coast hip-hop scene. So until then, remember to like, subscribe, and I will see you on the flip side. Peace!